So, um, I don't always know which videos that I'm going to put out there that are going to be like super highly controversial, and then I'm going to have like negative emails and comments. And apparently, talking about personal training is one of those things. Keep in mind, I am a personal trainer. I am a little bit biased, but I also know a lot more about how people exercise and what value is in personal training than most people do. So I'm sorry if that upset you, but chill out, guys. The other thing that came up was the fact that I knocked Trump in that video, and I try to keep my politics off of this video. But keep in mind this is a gay channel, right? And actually, a long time ago, somebody had messaged me and asked me about why, are trans people welcome in the community that I'm trying to build here? And I basically said, yeah, absolutely. This is really for everything. I may have like kind of my main target audience, but that doesn't mean that other people wouldn't be welcome. So if I were to open up an organization or something like that where we would actually meet and wrestle and stuff like that, and a trans person came in, you would 100% absolutely be welcome in that space and to join the groups and whatnot and talk. It's more that, I identify as gay and selfishly, started this as a gay community because that's where I saw the desire and need. And this person who commented, and I actually removed their comments from the channel because they were actually really offensive, started off talking about how, liberals are the ones that are toxic and aggressive and whatnot. And then he went on to a transphobic tirade, which is the impetus for this video. And here's the thing, you can tell me that the Trump people are the nicest people in the world and all that, but you kind of, I don't talk to a whole lot of them, and I'm sure like the Nazis, for example, were very nice people to other Nazis and other people that didn't like the Jews at that point in time. Just because you have certain nastinesses to you doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be nasty to everybody that you meet, and you're going to be nasty across the board. And so we have to really look at these things and say, okay, well, the real litmus test there is when you have somebody that you may not understand them, or that you may not see them as your community. How do you treat those people? And I think that is the litmus test for the Trump voters and stuff like that, is that when it comes to communities that are not theirs, they're not such nice people. If you are looking at, and this was kind of a big deal for me during the pandemic. My husband is Asian. He's from Thailand. And there were hate crimes going out where Asian people were getting attacked. And that was, coming from Trump. That Asian hate was coming from him. And so, no, I don't support him, and there's no way that you're going to tell me that those are nice people. Back, I think just before the pandemic or around that time, we had the Trans Pride Parade here in Seattle, and we heard that the Proud Boys were coming out to start some shit. And so I was called up and asked to help guard the parade. And what I didn't understand was that, it wasn't going to be, the leather community, which I'm a member of. When I showed up, there were thousands of people who were not trans. And what we did is we ended up surrounding the Trans Pride Parade with allies, and we marched them down to Anderson Park. And then when we got to the park, we were on guard. And we did see Proud Boys that were trying to pick people up on the way back to their apartments, on the way back to their cars. And again, those are, people trying to be violent. These are people that are not being nice. And that is what I see when you talk to me about Trump voters and that type of thing, is that I see the hate, I see it directed towards my community, and it is not okay, it's not acceptable. And so I want to if you are still watching this video at this point, then I want you to go ahead and continue watching so that you can understand some fundamental truths, because it's really, really vital that we understand what we're talking about. Now, first of all, let's talk about the idea that there are two genders. That is 100% false, and I'll tell you why. I know that you probably are going to go right down the comment section and you're pausing the video and you're like, bullshit. But there is also what's called intersexed. Intersexed means that you have the genetic material to have both male and female reproductive organs. They actually do account for a significant percentage of the population. So the idea that we have two genders is bullshit. We actually have three, if not four, if you want to say, okay, you have more male genitalia or you have more female genitalia. And this idea that a trans person is just like a tomboy if they're MTF or versus FTM, which I just got those backwards, and I apologize for that. But you know, the other thing that we have kind of come to understand, and I'm going to digress a little bit, and I'm going to go into homosexual biology, because we have this idea that you know, homosexuality is a choice, and we as gay people, you know, we are at a point where we have gotten significant rights from the government. We have the right to marry, we have certain freedoms. People no longer think of us exclusively as pedophiles or sexual predators or deviants. And there are few places in the US that I know of that where sodomy is illegal. We've actually matured as a country. But for transgender people, they are 30 to 50 years behind us. And in finding that acceptance. So it's really important for the gay community who's been there, done that. We know what the riots were all about. We know why we have gay pride parades. And it's really important for us to recognize that the trans community is catching up, and they're facing the same violence, they're facing the same issues that we were facing, in some cases they're still facing today, but we were facing, you know, 30 to 50 years ago. And so they do need our support. And so when we were talking about the biology of, you know, sexuality, not necessarily gender, what we found is that, and the way that we've studied it is by looking at twins. And so there are different types of twins. You have, you know, if two people were just born in the same womb, but they did not share the same egg or the same genetic material, then you'll have non-identical twins. Then you have identical twins, and there's kind of a little bit in the middle there. And what we found is that the more alike the babies are, and the more close to identical twins, there's no such thing as a perfect identical twin. That's kind of a misnomer. So you can still see, even in identical twins, some deviation, but the odds of both twins being gay, if one is gay, goes higher the more identical those twins are, right? The more that they share genetic material, the more likely that they're both going to be gay. And the other thing about that is when they've looked at these studies, they've also looked at twins that are separated at birth. So they're not being raised in the same environment, so we can take away that nurture side of it and say, okay, we can see that it still holds true that the more genetically identical twins are, the more likely they're going to share a sexuality. And so what does this have to do with transgender people? Well, we have to look at it. What we have actually found has actually been more done in autopsy. And so here's one of the thing that's really, really interesting, and there are other people who are more adept at speaking to this topic that are actual scientists that have actually done these studies. But what they found is that between male and female brains, as far as cisgendered brains, that means born that way, we actually do have fundamental brain structures that are going to be different. And we know this. We can actually see this in everyday life, right? So, you know, I have ADHD. That is a brain deviation that, you know, evolutionarily predisposes me to be able to function in certain environments better than others. And that is, you know, one form of genetic deviations within the brains. We have people that are going to be more logic driven. They're going to be people that are going to be more impulsive. You're going to have people that are more artistically driven. The way that we look at the world is going to be shaped by the brain structures that we have and which areas that we tend to be stronger in. We also know that we have brain deviations that will make some people right-handed and some people left-handed. And so we actually find that those brain deviations between male and female brains are actually pretty well pronounced. And what we've discovered with trans people is when we've done autopsies on them, we find that the chosen gender brain matches, right? So somebody who identifies as female has a more feminine brain shape versus somebody who identifies as male. So there is something structurally going on in the brain that suggests that people being transgender is completely genetic. It is completely in their brains that that they have this body dysmorphia, that they do not feel comfortable with their birth identity, right? And so they want to shift over to this so that their body matches their brain structures. So it's not, about genital mutilation. Especially as we're having more visibility and people are trying to understand their gender identities more, I'm not sure that I necessarily approve of having a 9-year-old having, a mastectomy or having their genitals changed in any way, shape, or form. But I do think that we need to be more accepting as a society in that age range, so that children can actually explore their identities and find out who they are, and then as they get to closer to 18 to 20 years old, that in that area, if they say no, I absolutely need to have the mastectomy, I absolutely need to have my genitals changed, then I think we need to be accepting that is the reality for them, and it is their life. It actually doesn't affect you one iota. And I know that the subject gets really, really tricky when it comes to sports to a certain extent. But when we do introduce hormone therapies into transgender people, their bodies tend to mimic their chosen, and I'm putting that in quotes because I do not feel that it is a choice. When you are transgender, there is a biological thing happening in your body. So when they go on to hormone therapy, it doesn't give them like some big competitive advantage. Sure, they're going to have lived experience. And I'm going to leave it up to the doctors and to the families to make the decision as to when they start their hormone therapy. Frankly, it's none of your fucking business when a child starts their hormone therapy. That's up to the parents and the medical providers and psychological providers to decide, not you. So fuck off. So I do think that when it's something that's more permanent, like a big body change, I think that should be something that's older. But when it comes to hormone replacement therapy and things like that, I think that we need to understand that there are issues that come along with them. I think that the hormone therapy does contribute to the obesity of male-identified trans people, and I don't know the reason for that. That is something that I have noticed within the community, and then I have done research that has suggested that actually is the case, that there are obesity is more common in the male-identified community, whereas we might have other issues that we have to deal with when it comes to the female-identified, because they're trying to get rid of their masculine shape, and then you're going to be running into disorders such as anorexia and whatnot. So it's important that we're trying to find healthy ways of giving them the best possible life, which is really what it comes down to. So when it comes to participating in sports, again, we are trying to shift people towards being as close to their cisgender counterparts. And when it comes to a lot of sports such as wrestling, which is what this channel is about, we have weight classes that we deal with. And if we're seeing that there are major competitive advantages for people who are female identified rolling with other girls, then we need to be figuring out, okay, how do we level the playing field so that they can still participate? Because one of the things that I think that a lot of people who are anti-trans are missing here is that the suicide rate for transgendered youth is between 30 and 50%, depending on whether or not they get the support that they need from their community, their family, and all that. And so when we say you're an other, so therefore you're not allowed to participate, then they're going to feel more isolated, they're going to feel like they don't have community, and then the rates of those suicides are going to go way up. So if what our goal is to try to have well-balanced, healthy individuals, then especially as you're growing up when gender doesn't matter as much, especially through the junior high level, then we shouldn't be too pissy about whether or not we have boys or male-bodied people competing with female-bodied people, especially when we can level that playing field and we can find ways that we can make things more fair for everybody. And I think that's really where we should be focusing our attention. How do we make this fair for everybody that's involved? And it's not always an easy question. It's going to be a sports-based question. But, again, the goal is, how do we make these people healthy, happy, and well-adjusted? And what we do 100% absolutely know, is that saying, no, you were born a boy, so you are staying a boy, and you're going to become a man, and that's how it's going to be. What we've found is that leads to death. That leads to depression. That leads to anxiety. That leads to isolation. Nothing good comes of it. So fucking stop, right? We are gay people. We know what it's like to be ostracized. We know what it's like to be an outsider. So why would we continue that behavior and start pushing it off onto the trans community? The trans community doesn't deserve that. It's not going to lead to better health outcomes for them. So all you're doing is creating misery and death. And on that note, I hope that you've heard me. I hope you see that where I'm coming from. Don't take my word for it when it comes to the biological stuff. Look it up. It's out there. There's a lot of solid research that shows that, if you're a dick to trans people, then you're just a dick. You're not right. There are not just two genders. And even if you want to, concede and say, okay, I admit that intersex is a thing, you're still a dick. Until you are willing to accept and bring those people in your communities, you're a dick. And that's all there is to it. It's none of your business. So let's try to create community. Let's try to be welcoming to people. And let's face the challenges that comes with that. Because that's the only way that we're going to build a better society. So, I know this is ranty. I know it's gone on long enough. But, that's one of the reasons why I will never support Trump. I mean, besides the fact that he's a criminal, he's a cheat, he's not a Christian. He is grifting off of, Bibles and all that. And he's a con artist. And a lot of you, for some reason, have bought into it. And it's insane because the writing is on the wall. It's not, a distraction. It's not unclear. The criminal charges are not fabricated. We did find, cheating in the last election, and it was all on Trump's side. None of it came from the Biden camp. None of it came from the Democrats. It was all Trump. He was the one who was calling and pressuring people to find more votes, to create more votes. He was the one who tried to stop the counting of the election. He wanted it to be, him no matter what. And if it's not, then it's cheating. Well, fuck him. Because, it's just insane that people can't see that at this point. And I don't love Biden. I really don't. I think that he has pleasantly surprised me on many fronts. And I am glad that it's him and not Trump in the office. But I also recognize that the criticisms of him, especially when it comes to Israel and Gaza, are somewhat justified. So, you know, I don't necessarily think that he has the strings to pull to make Netanyahu do what he wants him to do. But I do think that he's also been a little bit slow in actually trying to end that genocide. So, you know, and I know that that's probably going to lead to more comments in the comment section here, but you know, let's go with the person who is the most humane, the one who is going to respect our community the most, and in the meantime, you know, what are we going to do to support one another? So I hope this is helpful for you guys. I know this has nothing to do with gay wrestling, but it is so important that we have these discussions. And it's so important that we try to be accepting to those of us who are not as privileged as we are in these days. And right now, the trans community is not nearly as privileged as the gay community. Not that we are super privileged right now, but, you know, we are more allowed to exist than they are. So let's change that. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope this at least reached some of you and maybe helped you to have conversations with people who are, you know, more on the fence about it, who don't have that understanding of what it is to be trans, what is really at stake here. So thank you, and you guys have a great day. Oof.